The office was silent except for the soft hum of the air conditioner and the occasional click of a computer mouse. Everyone else had gone home hours ago, leaving me alone with stacks of reports and spreadsheets that seemed determined to multiply overnight. I sighed, rubbing my temples, wondering why I had insisted on finishing my work tonight. Then I heard it, a soft, deliberate footstep approaching. My heart skipped. No one else was supposed to be here. "Hello," I called, trying to sound calm. A shadow emerged from the doorway, tall and impeccably dressed. My boss, Mr. Hamilton, leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, an unreadable expression on his face. "Oh, hi," I stammered, suddenly aware that my hair was a mess and my blouse had a wrinkle I hadn't noticed before. "I stayed late to finish a few things," he said, his voice smooth and low. "I see you're still working too." "Yes, just trying to get these reports done," I replied, forcing a smile. He walked toward the empty chair across from me and sat down, placing his briefcase neatly on the floor. The air seemed to change, heavier somehow, as if his presence had altered the rhythm of the room. I tried to focus on my work, pretending that his being here was completely normal. "Mind if I join you?" he asked casually, but his eyes didn't leave mine. "Not at all," I muttered, feeling my pulse quicken. We worked in silence for a few minutes. I typed, he reviewed a file, and the quiet was almost comforting. Almost. But then he leaned back slightly and said, "You know, I've always wondered what you do when no one's around to watch." I froze, fingers hovering over the keyboard. I work," I said, though my voice betrayed more nervousness than confidence. He chuckled softly, leaning forward, resting his elbows on the table. "No, I mean here in the office. I've never really seen you alone like this." I swallowed hard, unsure how to respond. His gaze was intense but not unpleasant, and I felt the kind of flutter in my stomach that I hadn't felt in years. The kind that made me question whether staying late was actually my idea or fate's. Trying to shake off my nerves, I looked back at my screen. "Well, I usually leave on time," I said lightly. "Tonight's an exception." He said, tilting his head. "So tonight, I get to see the real you, huh?" I blinked, caught off guard. "Real me?" "Yes," he said, smiling faintly, almost teasing. "Not the professional, composed employee everyone else sees. Just you." I wanted to look away, to focus on the spreadsheet glaring back at me, but his eyes held mine like magnets. I could feel a warmth creeping at my neck. I guess you caught me at my best," I managed to say, voice barely above a whisper. He leaned back again, his expression softening. "You know, I've noticed how dedicated you are. Always staying late, always meticulous. It's impressive." I felt a blush creeping across my cheeks, and I tried to mask it with a small laugh. "Well, someone has to make sure the reports are done correctly." "True," he said, but his tone suggested there was more to what he was thinking. "But I have to admit, it's nice to see this side of you. Away from the meetings, the deadlines, the office politics." I swallowed, heart pounding. "I appreciate that," I said, unsure if I should feel flattered or nervous. There was a pause, filled only by the soft tapping of my keyboard. Then, unexpectedly, he reached into his briefcase and pulled out a small cup of coffee. "I thought you might need this," he said, placing it in front of me. "I make a mean latte if I do say so myself." I looked up, surprised. "You made this?" "Yes," he said, shrugging as if it were the most casual thing in the world. "I couldn't let you drown in spreadsheets without some caffeine support." I smiled, feeling a warmth that had nothing to do with the coffee. "Thank you, that's really thoughtful." He leaned back, observing me with a quiet intensity. "You know," he said slowly, "there's something about seeing someone work this hard, completely absorbed, that's oddly attractive." I felt my stomach twist into knots. "Attractive?" I repeated, barely audible. He didn't answer immediately. Instead, he tilted his head, eyes sparkling. "Yes," he said finally. I didn't expect to feel this way, especially at work. My mind raced. This couldn't be happening. My boss in front of me saying things that made my heart race faster than the keyboard ever could. Before I could respond, the office phone rang sharply, shattering the moment. I jumped, flustered, and he chuckled, a sound that made the tension in the room shift, almost playful now. "Seems like reality doesn't want to let us have this moment," he said lightly. I nodded, trying to collect myself. "Yeah, I guess not." He stood, straightening his jacket, and walked toward the door. "Well, don't stay too late tomorrow. I'd hate for the real you to disappear before I get a chance to see it again." I blinked, watching him leave, heart racing, unsure if I had just imagined everything. The room felt suddenly too quiet, too empty, yet charged with possibilities I couldn't ignore. I sat back in my chair, sipping the coffee he had made. Sweet, warm, and lingering, much like the feeling he had left behind. And in that empty office, I realized one thing: nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, I walked into the office still feeling the aftershocks of last night. My heart was unusually light, yet heavy with the thoughts of what had happened. Coffee in hand, I tried to act normal as I passed coworkers who were bleary-eyed and grumbling about early meetings. But inside, I was replaying the scene over and over. The way Mr. Hamilton's gaze had held mine, the gentle teasing, the unexpected comment about attraction. I shook my head, laughing softly at myself. Focus. It's just work, I reminded myself, though I knew deep down it was anything but just work. By mid-morning, the office had emptied again. My meetings were done, emails answered. The rhythm of the day felt almost too slow. I sat at my desk, glancing at the door every few minutes. Then, almost inevitably, it creaked open. Mr. Hamilton stepped in again, casually, as if it were nothing unusual. But this time, he carried a folder and a faint, almost mischievous smile. "You're working late again?" I asked, feigning surprise, though my chest raced. "Yes," he said, leaning against the edge of my desk. "But I thought maybe we could finish this together." I swallowed. Together? My mind conjured all sorts of possibilities, none of them professional. "Okay," I said softly, trying to sound casual. We dove into the work, sharing notes, reviewing documents, but the air between us was different. He would brush against my hand as he handed me papers, our fingers lingering for a fraction longer than necessary. I caught him staring a few times, and each time, my heart skipped a beat. At one point, he leaned closer, whispering, "You know, I never get a chance to see you laugh like that during meetings." I glanced up, caught off guard. "Laugh like what?" He smirked. "Like someone who's not pretending to be all professional. Like you." I felt my cheeks heat up. "Well, I guess meetings aren't exactly fun," I admitted, tucking a loose strand of hair behind my ear. He smiled, and suddenly, it was as if the office had melted around us. The fluorescent lights, the hum of computers, the ticking clock, they all faded into the background, leaving just the two of us. For a few moments, silence settled, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was heavy, electric, and full of unspoken words. Then he said softly, almost reverently, "I've wanted to tell you this for a while, but I wasn't sure how." I held my breath. "Tell me what?" His eyes met mine, unwavering, sincere. "That I like you, more than just as my employee, more than I should." The words hit me like a jolt of electricity. I wanted to speak, but my voice failed. My heart raced, pounding so loudly I was sure he could hear it. I began, then stopped, unsure of how to explain the whirlwind of emotions inside me. He reached out, brushing a loose strand of hair from my face.
"Sure.
"It's okay. You don't have to say anything." We sat there, the tension thick and tantalizing. I felt his hand linger just above mine, inches away, and I wanted nothing more than to close the gap. But just as I was about to, the office phone rang loudly, shattering the fragile bubble. We both jumped slightly, and he laughed softly, the sound warm and comforting. "Seems like fate doesn't want us to have our moment," he said, straightening his jacket. I laughed nervously. "Apparently not." He paused, then leaned closer again, lowering his voice. "But tonight, if you want, We could finish this where no one can interrupt us. My stomach flipped. Tonight? Yes, he said, with that confident, teasing smile that made my knees weak. I promise I won't bite unless you want me to. I blushed furiously, fumbling with my papers. I'll think about it, I murmured, my voice barely audible. He nodded, as if that was enough. Good enough for now. Then, after a brief pause, he straightened, gave me a small nod, and walked out, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts and a very warm cup of coffee he had brought earlier. The rest of the day passed in a blur. I tried to concentrate on my work, but every sound, the hum of the printer, the click of the keyboard, even footsteps outside my office, made me jump slightly, anticipating his return. When evening finally came, I stayed back just a little longer than usual, my heart pounding with expectation. The office was empty, the lights dimmed except for my desk lamp. And then I heard it, the soft creak of the door. He appeared, casual yet purposeful, carrying the same folder, but with a different air. There was something lighter in his steps, something playful. "Ready to finish this?" he asked, his voice low, teasing, yet serious. I nodded, trying to steady myself. Yes, let's do it. We worked together, side by side, the papers forgotten at times as our conversation drifted, laughter mingling with quiet glances. At one point, our hands brushed, an accidental touch that lingered just a fraction too long. "I can't believe I stayed late for this," I whispered, my voice trembling slightly. He smiled, looking down at me. "I can. Because sometimes the best things happen when you least expect them." Minutes felt like hours, and hours like minutes. The office, empty and silent, had transformed into a private world where only the two of us existed. Finally, as the clock ticked past 9, he looked at me, eyes soft. "Tomorrow," he said, "we might have to pretend everything is normal again. But tonight, can we just be honest?" I nodded, heart pounding. "Yes." He reached out, took my hand gently, and held it as if letting go was impossible. And in that empty office, surrounded by papers, files, and the hum of the air conditioner, the impossible became possible, and I realized that what had started as just another late evening at work had turned into something unforgettable, something that could change both our lives forever. And as we finally packed up, walking out together, I knew that tonight was only the beginning.